Welcome back. You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with the independent columnist James Rampton and assistant editor at The Spectator, Madeline Grant. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Well, the Telegraph reports the White House refused to approve an attack to kill the Iranian supreme leader to avoid widening the conflict with Israel. The Metro draws attention to Israel, warning Iran you'll pay a heavy price over strikes in Tel Aviv. The Eye says the RAF is on standby to defend Israel as the conflict with Iran escalates. The Guardian, also leading with the conflict, is focusing on the G7 Leaders Summit and their role in finding a ceasefire. The Financial Times is covering Israel-Iran, but also reporting on MI6, announcing Blaise Metroelli as the first female chief of the Secret Intelligence Service. The Times is looking at the grooming gangs inquiry, claiming that it's seeking swift justice for victims. The Mail also has the grooming gang story, calling it a U-turn from Sir Keir Starmer. The Sun has an exclusive about a probe into bullying at the BBC Breakfast Show with claims of a toxic environment. Well, let's get the thoughts now of James and Madeline. We'll start with the Daily Telegraph. And this line that we learnt this evening, that apparently, reportedly so, Donald Trump vetoed a plan to kill the Iranian supreme leader, although that has been put to bed, that theory has been denied by Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yes, it's interesting. It was dropped by Reuters, this story. And I think it's intriguing that it got out there because I think it might be a warning to Iran, the US and Israel saying, you know, we are perfectly capable of assassinating the supreme leader if it comes to that. And it is being discussed and we know how to do it. It's just another warning shot across the bows of the Iranian regime. And, of course, when he was questioned about this, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, was quite equivocal. He said, I'm not going to get into that. So it wasn't a flat denial. It was something rather more ambiguous than that. Of course, if they did kill Ayatollah Khamenei, it would go one of two ways. It could topple the regime, and Netanyahu's talked about regime change, but it could also usher in a more hardline leader who is even more keen to build a nuclear bomb more quickly. So it's a very risky strategy if they do pursue it.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm also fascinated by the fact that it got out. I can also see that it could be perhaps something of a warning to Netanyahu himself, given that it seems to be emanating from US officials, this particular line. We can see, I mean, for example, Donald Trump has made such a feature of not wanting to be dragged into any Middle Eastern forever wars. And I think you could argue that the conflicts that we've seen the last few days, the hostilities, the barrage and the assassinations do slightly challenge this Trumpian line that we've heard for such a long time, that basically none of the conflict we've seen in the world would have happened if I'd been in charge, you know? And obviously, you know, the Netanyahu's interview to Fox News tonight was really interesting because he chose his audience very deliberately. You know, that it's been clear for some time now that the Israeli government doesn't care so much what the views are of non-American Western leaders, but they really do care when it comes to America, that if Trump tells them to cease their operations, then they kind of have to, given the relationship.
How do you see this line that's been leaked about, you know, Trump vetoing this plan to kill the supreme leader? How is that a warning to Netanyahu?
Well, it's the fact that it's that they have shared this information and they're willing to potentially share private conversations if it has leaked. I mean, this is partly speculation, but it's a warning that says perhaps we don't have your back no matter what, and you know, and we're willing to tell people that we have diverged from you on this particular issue. Rein it in. I mean, this is just my theory. I don't have access to the information to back that up for sure, but it's a possibility.
James, your thoughts?
Yeah, and by the way, we give you, I think it's $5 billion a year in military aid. So just remember who's paying for all these attacks on Iran. Ultimately, Netanyahu needs Trump more than the other way round. So Trump is perhaps, or people within the White House are perhaps saying, you know, wind your neck in a bit. even though you're a very dogmatic and independent-minded leader, Mr. Israeli Prime Minister, we still ultimately call the shots. Because we have the money and we have the sphere of influence in that region. So you can't go completely rogue with your operations. So I think it is very interesting in a geopolitical sense that canny American diplomacy here is just trying to rein in Israel's more aggressive instincts a bit.
Madeleine, much of the commentary has been that Donald Trump has actually emboldened Netanyahu we're in this position because he's felt that he's got the full backing of the US.
Precisely, but equally, I can see that, you know, that so much of Donald Trump's foreign policy goals of the last few years have been to basically extract themselves from the Middle East and focus more on China, which they see as their single strongest foe. And there does appear to be some disagreement within his administration. Different officials think different things, but there is a very strong line of thought in the Trump administration that basically China is the big enemy that we now need to go for. So we don't want to get embroiled in conflicts as some of our predecessors have done, especially when they have made such a feature of being unlike their predecessors who were so entangled in the Middle East.
Yeah.
James, let's come back to the UK domestic story, front page of the Daily Mail, and this being reported as a massive U-turn by the Prime Minister.
Yes, this comes with very large health warnings in block capitals. That is the Daily Mail saying that, calling it a full U-turn. I would say that he's changed his mind, but I think all sensible politicians are allowed to change their mind. And in fact, Starmer himself has admitted that he's done so. He's read an advance report of Baroness Casey's national audit about these child grooming gangs that is being published tomorrow. And he says, you know, I'm actually very shocked by what I've read, and I think we do need to investigate more. The Times has a more balanced take on it, and it's saying Casey's advising that they target specific areas where she feels there have been failures and obstructions by both local councils and police for whatever reasons, perhaps woke reasons. They were fearful of being accused of being racist. And I think that is a good angle because it will certainly speed up the inquiry. And what we want, above all, is swift justice for the victims. I think it can go down all sorts of potentially dodgy right-wing rabbit holes here, but you've got to focus on the terrible suffering that was inflicted on these young women.
Yeah, you don't want it to become like so many public inquiries where the terms of reference are so broad that it takes years and years to report, there are no firm conclusions, and meanwhile, by the time they do report, it's completely different people in charge, so you don't get any kind of potentially consequences for the people who did preside over it, as we've seen with so many other inquiries. I do think that actually, on this occasion, Keir Starmer made a terrible error in the very strong language he used at the time when people first called for a public inquiry, including victims, you know, he used the stupid, insensitive language. He referred to it as a bandwagon of the far right. And so now to be U-turning in this way, I think is embarrassing and quite damning. And I also do see...
Is it embarrassing, or does it show that he's listening to the public and also reappraising his views based on the information in front of him?
Maybe if he apologised for calling everyone who called for an inquiry the far-right bandwagon, that might be something. But I also think it shows how his instincts immediately were wrong on this. He was not where the vast majority of the public were. I also think there's a bit of a recurring trope with Keir Starmer that basically has to wait for someone else to tell him what to do. He had to wait for the Supreme Court to give a judgment on what biological sex is before he agrees with it. And now he has to wait for Louise Casey to do a report before he can come out and say this.
Yeah, it chimes with the book that was written on him recently where it said that he didn't ever really want to be in politics. He's not a natural politician.
Exactly.
I mean, although I abhor many things that Boris Johnson did, he was a natural politician. He was brilliant at capturing the public attention. In fact, he got way too much attention, in my view. But Starmer doesn't read the room in the same way, and he's quite tin-eared about this. I think you're absolutely right. He painted himself into a corner, and now he's being accused of a U-turn because he was too dogmatic in his initial statement.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting analysis from you both. Thank you, James and Madeleine, for the moment. We're going to take a break. Coming up, pampered pets, how owners celebrating their pooches' birthdays with big parties and lavish gifts. Stay tuned.
I'm Alistair Bunkle, Sky's Middle East correspondent based here in Jerusalem.
The only way into Gaza for us right now is with the Israeli military.
We've just reached the centre of Khan Yunis.
The IDF had brought us in to show us a tunnel network under a residential neighbourhood.
At the end of the day, it's war at the top. It's war down here.
Sky News, get the full story first.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I saw police being forced or pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support.
What country are you
From the UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace. The end of the political stalemate, the start of a new chapter for Northern Ireland. Catholics and Protestants now facing the same threat.
If we both contract COVID-19, religion's nothing.
Sky News, the full story first.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos, analysis up at 6%. Podcasts, watching us live. Joins us live all in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
A show of military might and menace. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Have a quick word for Sky News. Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine? American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display. I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away.
So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, the independent columnist James Rampton and assistant editor at The Spectator, Madeleine Grant. Let's take a look at the Daily Telegraph. And this is the real world of espionage and spies, not James Bond at all, although most people will think of Q and they will think of James Bond. But this person has been named as the first female leader for her rival for the role, was criticised for being too soft on China. But this is Blaise Metroelli, I think that's how you pronounce her name, 47-year-old Cambridge graduate, now head of MI6. James.
Yeah, I mean, there are absolutely echoes of James Bond. People are saying this is a case of life imitating art, because Dame Judi Dench, of course, played M in many 007 films. And I think it's great that the two leading candidates are women. It's such a male-dominated area, and, you know, every John le Carré book, I know it's a different era, but is all about male spies. Yeah. But very interesting that there's been stuff leaked about the front runner, Dame Barbara Woodward, who was our ambassador to China between 2015 and 2020, and criticism emerged that she was too soft on China, which led to the nickname Beijing Barbara, and Sir Ian Duncan Smith former Tory leader who's very hard on China, said she'd been less than robust about Beijing's track record on human rights and freedom. I wonder if that tilted the argument against her. You don't want any suspicions that you show an Achilles heel anywhere in what is an exceptionally difficult job. You want to be unimpeachable. And perhaps those whispers about Dame Barbara moved the dial against her.
Madeline, she was the front runner, wasn't she?
She was the front runner, and there were lots and lots of articles about her. I mean, it's partly the fact that, as you said, we're only now learning the name of the new leader because they recruited from within MI6, so they couldn't name her for security reasons. So, which is all very mysterious, isn't it? In a way, quite reassuringly mysterious, I think.
Yes.
But I think that there's also a case here that this is MI6 choosing an insider quite deliberately, because Dame Barbara is more drawn from the ranks of diplomacy in the civil service. And perhaps MI6 just wanted to recruit one of their own, you know, for a familiar job with a familiar face.
Yes.
But, yeah.
I think she's an astonishing woman. She's only 47, Blaise Metrawelli, and she also won a blue in the boat race. I mean, that takes 8 days a week of training.
Wow.
So an incredible high achiever.
It's true.
And now she's the head of MI6 at the age of just 47. Good luck to her, is all I'd say, in this incredibly turbulent world.
Yes,
it's a very, very hard job.
Indeed, what a time to be taking up this position. She said in the statement, I'm proud and honoured to be asked to lead my service. We're going to do a gear change now.
OK.
Completely different story.
Woof to that.
You've let the cat out of the bag.
Very good. That's much better.
This is a story in The Times, and this is a trend of people throwing lavish parties for their pets.
Yeah, I mean... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm not surprised at all. This is something I see amongst my own friends. I'm kind of in the millennial cohort. It's definitely a thing. And people often spending vast sums of money. But in a way, I think it actually speaks to something quite sad. I know we teed it up as kind of a jolly story, but I think part of the reason people do go all out for their pets is because in some cases their life milestones have been postponed because they can't afford to buy a house, and you know, marriage and children have been put off for a lot of people. So I do think this partly explains, you know, many people do treat their pets like their children.
You've turned it into a sad story.
I know, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Although many people will say good, because famously we are a nation that treats its pets better than its children.
That's true.
And the figures bear this out. We are spending, pet owners are spending an average of £121 per year on pets' parties, and that's a total of £1.7 billion.
Yes.
Some of the toys they're getting, you can pay £65.99 for a portrait of your dog in military dress, which I think is fantastic. You can also get something called the Wicked Bone, which is the world's first Bluetooth-enabled, remote-controlled dog toy, which is retailing at £100. And some of the celebrities are setting a great tone here. Sofia Vergara, the actress from Modern Family, celebrated her Chihuahua's birthday by waking her up with a dramatic shower of dollar bills that she shot from a money gun. There's a picture of that there, and you just think,
that's
wow.
Wild, yes.
Yeah, that is wild.
Yes.
Also, Formula One champions Lewis Hamilton threw his bulldog Roscoe a party fit for a human, complete with party hats, dog guest list and a personalised dairy-free cake. Roscoe follows a vegan diet. I think that's the picture that we're seeing. I think that's Roscoe.
Blimey.
And then...
We're having a great... The Karl Lagerfeld cat
that's a great story,
unbelievable. Karl Lagerfeld died a few years ago now, but one of the stipulations of his will was that somebody take care of his cat, and he put millions, possibly tens of millions of pounds aside for someone to take on this job. And the cat is still alive, and it celebrated its last birthday with a party on a private jet.
Wow.
I had one party hat, which cost about 10p. I think I could only have a private jet if someone drew me a picture of it. That was the closest one as I'd get to one. But I think it's a great story. In these dark times, it's so important to have a bit of lightness as well.
I know it's nice, but will the dog remember it, you know?
James and Madeline, thank you so much for taking us through the papers. Do stay with us, much more coming up at the top of the hour.